All right, so let's dive right in. Today we're looking at this partnership that's making headlines, SpaceX and the FAA. It seems like they're joining forces to try and revolutionize the U.S. air traffic control system. We've got a bunch of sources here, news articles, government statements, the whole 9 yards to try and give us the full picture.
Yeah, it's a pretty unexpected move, especially when you consider their history.
Right, and we'll get to that. But first, think about this. What happens when you take Silicon Valley and all its tech and innovation, and you combine it with the world of aviation? Buckle up, because this is going to be a wild ride.
It really is a collision of two different worlds. You've got the FAA, this government agency that's all about regulation and tradition, keeping our skies safe.
And then you have SpaceX, known for doing things fast and bold, always pushing the limits.
Exactly. It's a fascinating contrast. Makes you wonder, can these two totally different worlds actually work together to fix a system that's, well, let's be honest, kind of outdated?
It's no secret our air traffic control system needs an upgrade. Badly. We're talking old infrastructure tech that feels like it's from the dinosaur age, like trying to run a Ferrari on a dirt road.
And it's not just a theoretical problem either. It has real consequences. Remember that tragic air collision near Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport, 67 lives lost. That really highlighted how urgently things need to change.
Absolutely. And that's where SpaceX enters the picture. And you might be thinking, SpaceX. Rockets. What's that got to do with air traffic control?
It's not as crazy as it sounds. Think about it. To get a rocket safely to space and back, they need some seriously sophisticated systems, real-time data analysis, communication, autonomous navigation. All those skills are totally relevant to modernizing air traffic control.
So basically, the Trump administration is betting on that. From what we've seen, they think SpaceX could change the game.
Definitely. This whole partnership really lines up with their goal of using private companies to make the government more efficient. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy seems to be the one really pushing this, and he's been pretty clear about his vision. He even said America deserves safe, state-of-the-art air travel, and President Trump has ordered that I deliver a new world-class air traffic control system that will be the envy of the world.
Wow, that's a bold statement. And Elon Musk, never one to hold back, chimed in too, saying SpaceX engineers will help make air travel safer.
Yeah, it's clear both sides see this as a big opportunity, but it's not just about the technology. It's a totally different way of thinking.
What do you mean?
Well, traditionally, the government handles big projects like this. Bringing in SpaceX changes that it's like saying, hey, let's see if the private sector with its speed and innovation can solve these problems.
Which brings us to something really important, the history between SpaceX and the FLA. It's no secret they haven't always gotten along.
Yeah, things haven't been smooth sailing. Our sources paint a picture of tension, regulatory delays, even fines imposed on SpaceX under previous administrations.
And Musk himself hasn't exactly been quiet about his criticisms of the FAA. He even called for a leadership change a few years back.
So this partnership is a pretty big turnaround in their relationship.
For sure. And it makes you wonder, can they really put aside all that past drama and work together?
It does, especially since this is all happening while the FAA is going through some serious internal shakeups.
You're talking about the restructuring and all those probationary employees being let go?
Exactly. Hundreds of them gone. It's causing quite a stir.
So we've got SpaceX coming in to try and fix air traffic control. And at the same time, the FAA is shrinking its workforce. It's a lot to unpack. What's the reasoning behind all these layoffs?
Well, the administration is saying it's all about streamlining, making the government more efficient, less bureaucracy, more tech. That's the key to a modern system, they say.
Okay, so efficiency and new tech. But you said these staff cuts have people worried, right?
Oh, yeah, especially the Professional Aviation Safety Specialists Union. They're called PASS. They're saying these layoffs are going to make things worse. We're already short-staffed. They say this is going to put safety at risk.
So you've got the administration pushing for a leaner, tech-heavy approach, and then you've got the union worried about safety. It's a tough situation.
It is. And this whole efficiency versus safety thing, it keeps coming up. Can technology really replace human expertise when it comes to something as important as air traffic control?
That's the million-dollar question, and I don't think there's an easy answer.
Nope. And it's a debate that's going to keep going as this whole thing plays out. We'll need to weigh the potential benefits against the risks of having more automation in the system.
For sure. And let's not forget the political side of this SpaceX and FAA thing. It's happening in a supercharged political environment.
Totally. Everything is under a microscope, and there are already people criticizing how the administration is handling things. For example, some critics are saying that the administration is playing favorites with SpaceX because it's a company that has close ties to the president. They're suggesting that this partnership is an example of...
Hang on, before we go any further, I think we need to be clear with our listeners. When we talk about this kind of criticism, we're just trying to show you the different sides of this issue. We're not taking sides here. We're just trying to give you a balanced view of what's going on.
That's important. We want you to have all the info so you can make up your own mind.
Right. So let's get back to the politics. What are some of the main concerns people are bringing up?
Well, like I was saying, some people are worried about potential biases in the decision-making process. They point to Elon Musk, who's the CEO of SpaceX and also happens to have a government job. President Trump appointed him to head the Department of Government Efficiency.
So they're basically saying that because Musk is involved in both the private and public sectors, that could be a conflict of interest.
Exactly. They're arguing that this could lead to decisions that benefit SpaceX.
Now, Duffy has addressed this. He said SpaceX isn't getting any special treatment. He pointed out that the FAA gives tours of their command center all the time, implying that SpaceX isn't getting any special access.
But even with Duffy's reassurances, people are still worried about a potential conflict of interest, and it's probably going to keep coming up as this partnership moves forward.
Okay, so we got the politics, the safety concerns, the potential conflicts of interest. It's a lot riding on this collaboration. But what does it all mean for the average person who just wants to fly from point A to point D? What can we expect as all these changes start to happen?
That's the big question everyone's asking. It's still pretty early, and it's hard to say for sure what the long-term effects will be, but the goal is to make flying safer and more efficient.
So fewer delays, smoother flights, maybe even shorter travel times.
That's the hope. The idea is to use new tech to optimize how we use airspace, improve communication between planes and ground control, and come up with better routes.
Sounds ambitious.
Oh, it is. Fixing a system as huge and complex as air traffic control is a massive project. It's going to take a lot of money, careful planning, and constant collaboration between FAA, SpaceX, and everyone else involved.
And we can't forget about that air collision near Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport. That tragedy adds a whole other layer of complexity to this.
For sure. The administration is under a lot of pressure to show they're taking this seriously and doing something concrete to address safety concerns.
You know, we've talked a lot about technology and efficiency, but at the end of the day, it's the air traffic controllers who make this system work. They're the ones making decisions in real-time decisions that affect the safety of tons of passengers every day. How are all these changes going to affect them?
That's a good question. It's a bit complicated. On the one hand, the goal is to create tools and systems that make their jobs easier and maybe even reduce their workload.
So more automation could actually make their jobs less stressful.
That's the thinking. Imagine a system that can automatically spot potential conflicts, figure out the best flight paths, even handle routine communication. That would free up the controllers to focus on the really tough stuff.
Makes sense, but what about job losses? Could more automation mean fewer jobs for air traffic controllers?
Yeah, that's a real worry. As technology gets better, the role of the air traffic controller might change. Some tasks could be automated. We need to have honest conversations about this and make sure the controllers are part of the discussion.
Totally. Their knowledge and experience are super valuable. They need to have a say in how this all unfolds.
Absolutely. It's about working together, not replacing them. Technology should be used to help them, not to get rid of them.
Okay, so we've talked about the potential good stuff, but we got to talk about the downsides too. What if this doesn't work out the way they planned? What are the risks?
That's a really smart question. Anytime you have a project this big, there are risks. One worry is that the technology won't live up to the hype.
You mean it might not be as good as they think it will be?
Exactly. Or there could be unexpected technical problems. We're talking about combining really complex systems and using cutting-edge tech. There's always a chance something could go wrong.
And what about human error? Even with fancy new tech, people can still make mistakes.
True. You can't get rid of human error completely. And in a system as important as air traffic control, even a small mistake can have huge consequences.
So how do we minimize those risks?
Safety has to be the #1 priority. Every decision, every time we use a new technology, it has to be looked at with safety in mind.
Sounds like transparency and communication are going to be really important.
Totally. People need to know what's happening with this project, the good and the bad. Being open about everything will help build trust and make sure everyone is accountable.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some of the key takeaways? We've covered a lot: the need for change, the potential benefit, and the risks of this SpaceX FAA thing.
This is a bold move. It's a completely different way of thinking about air traffic control. It could revolutionize the system, make flying safer and more efficient, but it's not a slam dunk.
We need to be aware of the potential downsides, the ethical questions, the impact on the people who work in air traffic control. It's complicated with a lot of moving pieces, and it's all happening out in the open.
It's a fascinating story, and it's just getting started. I think the next few years are going to be crucial in deciding if this succeeds or not.
I agree. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, and to our listeners, keep paying attention. This story isn't going away. We'll be here to keep you updated.
Keep learning, keep exploring, keep diving deep.
It feels like everything's happening at once. The push to modernize, worrying about safety, and then that tragic accident. It's a lot.
Yeah, and we haven't even talked about the air traffic controllers themselves. They're the ones right there in the thick of it, making split-second decisions that keep people safe.
That's true. We've been talking tech and efficiency, but it's the controllers who are at the heart of the system. How will all this change their jobs?
It's tricky. On one hand, the idea is to give them tools that make their lives easier, maybe even lighten their workload.
So could more automation actually make their jobs less stressful?
That's the goal. Think of it like this. What if there was a system that could spot problems before they happen, figure out the best flight paths, even handle some of the basic communication that would free up the controllers to focus on the really important stuff?
Yeah, but what about jobs? Could all this automation mean fewer jobs for air traffic controllers?
That's a legitimate concern. As tech gets more advanced, the job of an air traffic controller might change. Some things might become automated. We got to talk about this openly and honestly and make sure the controllers are part of the conversation.
Totally. Their knowledge and experience are invaluable. They need to be involved in shaping the future of air traffic control.
Exactly. It's about collaboration, not replacement. Technology should be there to support them, not to replace them.
Okay, we've talked about the potential good stuff, but we need to talk about the what-ifs too. What if this doesn't work out the way everyone hopes? What are the risks?
That's a good question to ask. Anything this big comes with risks. One concern is that the technology won't be as good as they're promising.
You mean it might not actually be as efficient or as effective as they're saying?
Right. Or there could be technical problems that no one saw coming. We're talking about super complicated systems and brand new technology. There's always a chance that things could go wrong.
And even with the best technology, people can still make mistakes.
Absolutely. Human error is always a factor. And in air traffic control, even a small mistake can have really serious consequences.
So how do we try to prevent those mistakes?
Safety has to be the top priority. Every decision, every time we introduce new technology, we have to think about safety first.
It sounds like transparency and communication are going to be really important.
For sure. The public needs to know what's going on. The good and the bad, being open about everything will help build trust and keep everyone accountable.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, it seems like we're at a crossroads. This partnership between SpaceX and the FAA, I could change everything about how we fly. But it's not without its challenges.
This is a bold experiment, a total shift in how we handle air traffic control. It has the potential to make flying safer and more efficient, but there's still a lot of questions.
We've got to consider the potential downsides, the ethical questions, the impact on the people who work in air traffic control. It's a complex issue, and it's all happening out in the open for everyone to see.
It's a fascinating story, and it's just getting started. The next few years are going to be crucial in determining whether this is a success or a failure.
It's definitely going to be interesting to see how it all plays out to our listeners. Stay tuned. This story is far from over, and we'll be here to break it all down for you as it develops.
Keep learning, keep exploring, keep diving deep.
And on that note, we'll see you next time for another deep dive.